A young brunette girl, dressed in a dark blue classic dress, desperately runs from a house, barefoot and holding a plastic bag filled with her clothes. There's a big stain on her chest that looks like a blood stain that she tried to clean up to no avail. After minutes of running, she reaches a neighbor's house, pleading for help, but she's so anxious she can barely speak without rambling. Her name's Erin Tierney, and she supposedly has committed a murder. Days later, she becomes a fugitive and has to find a way to escape from a very determined detective called Kevin, who is coming after her for her crime. She changes her hair, which was long and dark, to blonde and short, so it will be harder to recognize her when she moves out. Then, she buys a bus ticket to Atlanta. Meanwhile, Detective Kevin goes after her at the bus station and even stops some buses to catch her. Katie manages to escape, and after days of traveling across the country, she ends up in a port city called Southport in North Carolina. It's a small, quaint town of fishermen where everyone knows each other. There, she sees an opportunity to start her life over. She changes her name to Katie Feldman, finds a job as a waitress at a seafood restaurant, and rents a small, cozy cabin in the woods where she can reside comfortably and away from the city. What Katie doesn't know is that her name and picture are plastered all over Boston, saying she's a fugitive for first-degree murder. Her first night at the cabin didn't go well. She has a bad dream about the night she committed the crime, where she was being assaulted and she uses a knife to defend herself. Katie was involved in an abusive relationship where her significant other hurt her, and that scarred her to life. She abruptly wakes up scared that something or someone is going to come after her in the middle of the night, so she closes her windows and tries to sleep again. Next day, she meets Alex Wheatley, a handsome widower who owns the town's general store and takes care of his two small children, Lexi and Josh. He's a loving father trying to do the best he can for his kids after losing his wife to cancer. They make small talk while Katie buys some things for her new house, but it's nothing too deep, and Alex is a bit awkward. As for Lexi, Alex's daughter, she is outspoken and enchants Katie with her conversation skills. Later that day, Katie's working when she notices two cops coming into the restaurant. She instantly tenses and tries to hide from them, but they don't seem to recognize her at all, to her relief. When Katie goes back home, she sees a strange woman snooping around her cabin. She finds it weird and asks the woman if she can help her. The woman is Jo. She's a tall, slender brunette. She's also Katie's neighbor, and later on she will become Katie's only friend. She tells Katie she was just curious about who she was because it was hard to get new people in Southport. She explains that she also moved to a small town to run from the city, though for what reason is not yet clear. What is clear is that she is also a lonely woman, and the perfect company for Katie. As the days go by, Katie slowly settles in her new home in town. She gets closer to Jo, and they frequently walk together back home and talk about their lives. Katie also sees Alex and his daughter, Lexi, more often, since his store is close to her cabin. Alex is obviously interested in Katie, and though she seems to be interested in him too, she's not ready for another relationship after leaving a really bad one. Alex shows his interest by helping her out around her house and giving her his wife's bicycle so she doesn't need to walk all over the city, as she was doing. Katie is like a scared animal, and she's afraid of her own shadow. So when Alex leaves the bike in the middle of the night, in her backyard, Katie confronts him and tells him she doesn't need his help, nor does she appreciate that he went to her home without being invited. Alex is offended by the way Katie is talking to him, when he was only trying to do a good thing for her. They argue a bit and then go their separate ways. Meanwhile, Detective Kevin is looking all over for Katie. He searches the security cameras at the bus station and finds out she took a bus to Atlanta, but she could have stopped anywhere in the middle. He also notices that she has changed her appearance. When his search leads to nothing, he stops in her old neighborhood to ask if any of the neighbors knew or saw her around. Most of them didn't. The same neighbor from the beginning who helped her out, an old lady called Irene, tells Kevin that she doesn't know Katie. Katie complains to Jo about Alex's gesture, and Jo tells her to take it easy because people in small towns just like to help, even if you don't ask for it, and that it was just a nice gesture. Katie ponders if she overreacted because of her last relationship and fear of owing anything to a strange man, and she finally reaches the conclusion that she did. Next day, she decides to go talk to Alex and apologize for her harsh behavior. Alex is really cold with her though, and tells her she doesn't need to worry because it won't happen again. Katie feels bad. He seems like a legit guy and she let her fear and insecurities lead the way. Before she can say anything else to him, a handful of tourists stop by the general store and Katie's hackles rise in fear again. She is paranoid that the tourists will know who she is, but it's obvious that's also something she's making up because she's so afraid of getting caught. As she is waiting for the tourists to leave, she sees Alex's son, Josh, fall down into the water after hitting his head on a boat. Alex and her run after him, and while Alex saves his son from drowning, Katie comforts a scared Lexi. Alex is surprised that she's helping his daughter and thanks her. Then, he offers her to take the bike again and this time, she accepts. What Katie has no idea is that back in Boston, Detective Kevin is more determined than ever to find her. He seems like a detective who doesn't give second chances, especially not when his mind is set. He changes Katie's picture and photoshops it to be blonde and short-haired, similar to how he saw her at the tapes from the bus station. Then he submits it to the special bulletin so that other officers from all over the country can see it. It works, as the next day the cops in Southport receive it and put it on the board at the station. It is unbeknown to Katie, who decides to go to the beach with Alex and his kids after Lexi pleads for her to go. Her day with them was great. It was everything she needed. Katie and Alex have great chemistry together, and she gets along well with Lexi. They take many pictures, swim, and have fun. The only one not very comfortable with Katie is Josh, probably because he misses his mom and doesn't want his dad to replace her. Alex asks Katie questions like if she was planning on staying in the town and the reason she moved, but Katie dodges all the questions about herself. Alex thinks it's weird that she isn't answering, but he lets it go. On the other side of the country, while Katie's having lots of fun with Alex's family, Detective Kevin goes back to question Irene. For some reason, he suspects she knows more than she's letting on regarding Katie. Still, the woman doesn't give him any new information. Katie's life gets better after she opens up to Alex and to other people in town. Days after the beach, Alex invites her to go canoeing and she says yes. There, Alex shares with Katie about his grief after losing his wife and how he dealt with it. Katie is impressed by the way he talks about his late wife, how he loved and cherished her, and how he wanted to keep her memory alive for his kids. Their cozy moment is interrupted when it starts pouring and they have to go find shelter. They end up in a small restaurant, dripping water from the rain, but laughing about it. They eat and talk for hours, about everything and nothing, until it's time for them to go. Before they do, though, Alex asks Katie for a dance. It's very romantic, and they almost kiss. They are interrupted by Alex's friend, Rhett, who is also a police officer. They ride back to Southport. Katie is anxious the whole drive, afraid that the police officer is going to know who she is, but he doesn't. Back at her house, before he leaves her, Alex grabs her and kisses her passionately. Katie is giddy with happiness, and she can't sleep thinking about Alex. Meanwhile, Alex thinks about his wife and wonders if he's betraying her memory by going out with another woman. In the following scene, Detective Kevin goes back to the crime scene from the murder Katie committed. The house is intact, the evidence spread all over, as if the police haven't gone there to check. There are no protection tapes that should be in an open crime with the murderer on the loose. Kevin is comfortable around the house. He pours himself some scotch and thinks about what could have happened to Katie. We get flashes of her at Irene's house, cutting her hair and preparing to leave. Irene helped her get to the bus station and even told her if she needed anything, she would be there. It's a strange reaction to an alleged murderer. Next day, Katie is having the same thoughts as Kevin, remembering everything that led her to Southport. She decides to call Irene to tell her how she's doing. At the same time, Kevin finds a recipe for a cherry pie in the house, and he remembers that one of the neighbors has a cherry tree in their backyard. It's Irene. He goes to Irene's house again and opens the mailbox so he can compare the handwriting in the recipe and in the mail. The handwriting on both are the same. That was the evidence he needed to prove that Irene knew Katie before the murder, though she lied and told him she didn't. Kevin is mad. He violently slaps the recipe and Irene's mail on her window, frightening the poor lady. It's certainly not good behavior for a cop to scare old people. Kevin seems more into the murder than it's normal. He tells Irene to open the door so they can talk, but she replies that she will do it when he has a warrant. Back to Katie, Alex visits her at work and they kiss again. Katie is really happy. Alex invites her to go on their first date later that day, which only brings them closer. When the date is over, Katie invites Alex to her home under the excuse of checking on her new floor. Of course, that's not the reason, so as soon as they are inside, they kiss under the moonlight and get intimate for the first time. The following day, Alex goes to the police station to talk to his friend Red about the upcoming 4th of July festival. He never would have thought that while there, he would see something that would shock him. A wanted picture of a woman who looked just like Katie. It's uncanny. He rips the picture from the panel and goes after Katie to confront her. When he arrives at the restaurant, instead of calling her Katie, he calls her Erin, her real name, and Katie turns around with eyes wide open. Now it's obvious that Katie and Erin are the same woman, and there's nothing she can say to deny that. Alex cannot believe his eyes. He would have never suspected that sweet, cheeky Katie is a suspect of a murder in another city. Katie is confused when he shows her the wanted picture. Alex doesn't give her a chance to explain. He starts accusing her of taking advantage of his trust, that he even let his kids get close to her. Katie tries to explain that she was a young girl who got into a relationship with a bad man, and that she was hurt in the process. Alex refuses to listen to her now that he knows the truth. He tells her to leave before she is arrested by Rhett and storms out. Katie's ground crumbles under her feet. Meanwhile, Kevin isn't having a great day either. When he goes back to the precinct, his boss calls him to his office. There, his boss shows him the wanted picture for Katie and asks him what that picture is doing there. At first, Kevin doesn't know what to say, but his boss forces him to share the truth. Not only that, but he suspects that Kevin is drinking on the job, which he confirms. Kevin is suspended for not only drinking, but also creating false evidence for a fake crime. Katie didn't kill anyone. As a matter of fact, Kevin is her abusive husband, a complete psycho that is obsessed with her and thinks he owns her. In the following scene, there is a flashback of the night when Katie escaped. She had prepared a cherry pie, Irene's recipe, for dinner. Her husband arrives home and they seem okay. They eat together and Kevin compliments the pie. All is good until Kevin suddenly changes his behavior. He accuses Katie of having a certain type of look, and when she replies she doesn't have anything to say to him, he breaks a wine glass, which scares Katie. She tries to calm him by keeping her voice down, but it's to no avail. When she tries to leave the room to grab some coffee, Kevin grabs her by the throat and throws her on top of a coffee table. He attacks her violently, and to defend herself, Katie grabs a knife and points it at him, pleading him to stop. He disarms her and keeps hurting her until Katie takes the knife again and stabs him in the ribs. After that, she runs away, all bloodied, to her neighbor's house. When she disappears with the help of Irene, Kevin starts hunting her and pretending she is the suspect of a murder. He uses his status as a policeman to create a fake warrant for Katie. Katie also gets flashbacks of her abusive relationship after her argument with Alex. It's painful to remember all she has been through while also being accused of a crime she didn't commit. With nothing else to do, she runs back to her house, feeling suffocated and lost. She can't believe that Kevin is still ruining her life, even from a distance. Not only that, but it's obvious now that he's actively looking for her, using even his powers as a detective to do so. Things are not looking good for her. When she gets home, she packs as fast as she can. Joe appears to comfort her and tells her to think about what she's doing first. But Katie refuses her advice and tells her that she's stuck in Southport for no good reason. Joe is offended that out of the blue Katie is being mean to her, so she leaves her be. As for Alex, he starts feeling conflicted. On the one hand, Katie is a sweet person, and whenever they were together, she seemed genuine in her feelings for him and his kids. She didn't seem capable of hurting anyone. Maybe he should give her at least the opportunity to explain why she's wanted for murder. He goes to her place, but when he gets there, all her things are gone. Still, he doesn't give up. A few moments later, he finds her leaving town and begs her not to go. He tells her he loves her. Now it's time for Katie to be conflicted. She was happy with Alex and his family, but the threat Kevin poses is like a shadow in her life. She tells Alex she's scared of him, but he promises that he will protect her if it's needed. She's reluctant, but eventually she agrees. Now, Kevin is coming to Southport. He is completely mad and obsessed with Katie. He wants her back no matter what. To find out where she is, he broke into Irene's house and discovered that Katie is living in North Carolina and working at a restaurant. It will be easy to find her. As for Katie, she goes back to Alex's place and tells him everything that happened to her with Kevin. At the beginning, when he started hurting her, she excused him and put the blame on herself. He always apologized and told her he would never do it again. The last time, when she fought back against him and won, she thought he was going to kill her. As she opens her heart, Alex is supportive and comforts her when she needs it. Their moment of peace won't last, though. Next day, Kevin arrives at Southport. He's drunk, but he knows exactly where Katie is working now. He stops there first, but it's closed because of the 4th of July. Then he goes to Alex's general store, where Lexi is taking care of the store as she usually does when her dad is not there. Kevin buys water and interrogates Lexi. He asks if she knows who Katie is. He even shows her a picture of Katie, but she denies it and pretends she doesn't know her. Kevin is frustrated with her, but there is nothing else he can do. When he leaves, he bumps into Alex, neither knowing who the other is. The whole town is celebrating the holiday. The festival of the 4th of July in Southport is the biggest in the state, and everyone watches the parades excitedly. Meanwhile, Kevin searches for Katie everywhere. Whenever he sees a blonde woman, he goes after her because he thinks it's Katie. It's hours later when he finally finds her. Katie is having a great time with Alex and his kids, not knowing there is a dangerous predator looking for her, and he's determined to get her no matter what. It's right at the moment when she's kissing and dancing with Alex that he sees her, and he's not happy at all to see her kissing another man. He gets really upset but manages to get a grip on his rage before he does something in a place full of witnesses. So he waits. After the celebrations, Alex and Josh leave to go release the fireworks, and Katie stays with the sleeping Lexi at his house. Kevin is watching the family and he waits for the moment Alex leaves to go after Katie. Later on, as the fireworks brighten the sky, Katie watches from the docks. Lexi is sleeping inside the house. Out of the blue, Joe appears and warns Katie that her ex is there. The scene changes and Katie wakes up. She had been dreaming. For some reason, the dream unsettles her, so she decides to go out to get some air. On the way, Kevin, standing right behind her, talks to her. Katie slowly turns to him, her heart on her throat. The usually composed detective is a mess. Dirty, drunk, and crying about how much he missed her. Katie tries to control her feelings and gets Kevin to leave the place where Lexi was sleeping. They go outside, and she lets him talk. He tells her he wants her to come back home, to which she replies she already is home. Kevin asks if the reason she wants to stay is Alex, and informs her he saw them together during the party. Katie isn't about to bow down to him, though. She's sick and tired of this man, and she now has Alex backing her up. She asks him to leave, that she doesn't want to be with him because he hurt her many times and she's tired of it. Kevin is a man possessed when he hears her deny him. He grabs his gun and uses it to threaten Katie. She stands her ground, even though she's shaking, and demands that he leave her alone. Kevin tells her she's making a mistake and leaves. Katie releases the breath she was holding and runs back to the store, only to realize Lexi isn't there anymore. Thankfully, Katie finds her outside, watching the fireworks, and brings her back home. She is desperately calling Alex when she hears the noise of water running. It's Kevin throwing gasoline all over the general store where she and Lexi are. Before he can light it on fire, she runs to him. Katie apologizes and asks him to take her home. Slowly, she brings him away from the gas in the store, but there were many fireworks being released that day, and one spark falls right over the gas, lighting the whole store on fire in a matter of seconds. Katie doesn't notice because she's too busy pushing Kevin in the water, and when she does, the fire is already all over the place. Lexi is still inside the house, and Katie tries to enter it to save her. At last, Alex notices the fire from where he is, and he gets in the boat to go back to his store. Meanwhile, Katie is yelling for Lexi when Kevin suddenly appears behind her and starts choking her. Fortunately, Alex arrives on time to save Lexi. Kevin keeps hurting Katie until she manages to grab his gun and shoot him before he shoots her. He's dead in a second, his body slumped over her. Katie pushes him from her body and runs towards Lexi and Alex. They hug and comfort each other after the whole traumatizing ordeal. Now it's time to build back what Kevin destroyed. Days later, Alex is looking after his late wife's things when he finds a letter that is supposed to go to the person he loved after she died. It's a very important step for him to give up something so precious, and it clearly shows that he's serious about Katie and committed to their relationship. Katie is surprised when he gives it to her. In the letter, his wife confirms that if he didn't love her, he wouldn't have given it to her. Then, she proceeds to say that she wished she was there to meet Katie. With the letter, there's also a picture, and in the picture, there's the woman Katie knew as Jo, her friend from the moment she stepped in Southport. Katie is completely speechless and she can't believe it. Just days ago, Jo had said goodbye to her and told her that she was leaving town to go somewhere else. It's truly a miracle. Jo asks her to take care of her kids too, to teach them the right ways and be there for them when they need it. Katie gets Jo's blessing in a very unexpected way. In the end, Katie kisses Alex and they sail together with his kids, with the knowledge that life can only get better from then on.